Former President Donald Trump sat down for a lengthy interview with Time, and he had some interesting things to say about the ongoing war in Gaza, and more importantly, in regard to his critique of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, the conversation surrounding the issue of Israel started with the national politics reporter for Time, his name is Eric Cortellessa, asking Donald Trump whether he would be willing to put conditions on military aid to Israel. So at first he asks the question, Trump didn't answer it directly. He just kind of went on and on about all the wonderful things he did for Israel when he was in office. But then you have the reporter asking him again. Eric Cortellessa asks him, so you won't rule out withholding or conditioning aid? And Trump says, no, we have to be, meaning we have to be conditioning the aid. But then he went on to hedge. And what I mean by that is listing all the ways that he has been a massive friend to Israel, saying, look, there's been no president that's done what I've done for Israel. When you look at all the things that I've done, and it starts with the Iran nuclear deal, you know, Bibi Netanyahu begged Obama not to do that deal. I ended that deal, he continues to say, and if they were smart and energetic, other than trying to get Trump, they would have made a deal because they were in bad shape. They should have made a deal with Iran. They didn't prosecute that. They didn't make a deal, but I did Golan Heights. So the second part of what he said there, the graphic that I just read to you, to me is super unclear. Who is they? Is he referring to the Israelis when he says they in that comment? And what I noticed is, while he did certainly have some critique of Benjamin Netanyahu, that was clear, he did also speak from both sides of his mouth, which is what he typically does with controversial issues. And we'll get to more of that in just a minute.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you. Yeah, my overall read on it is that the upside of Trump is that he's so unpredictable. Why is that an upside in this particular case? Because you know what the establishment is going to give you. If it's whether it's Nikki Haley or Joe Biden, they're going to back Israel 100% no matter what happens. Doesn't matter if there's 2,000 dead Palestinians, 20,000, 200,000. You know that they're going to support. Oh, they're going to wag their finger and support Israel 1,000,000,000%, right? With Trump, at least he's unpredictable, so you never know. But everything else is a disaster on this issue. So he keeps bragging about how, hey, I got them Golan Heights, which they were supposed to return to Syria, but I guess we're just stealing land now. And I can go on and on, but all the times. But guys, what does this depend on? It depends on only one thing: whether Miriam Adelson gives him the money or doesn't.
And that's gonna come up to some extent later in this portion of the interview. So let's get to the Benjamin Netanyahu criticism. So the reporter asks, is it time for Netanyahu to go? And Trump responds, well, I had a bad experience with Bibi, and it had to do with Soleimani, referring to the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani, who Donald Trump, of course, assassinated. Because as you know by now, he dropped out just before the attack. And I said, what's that all about? Because that was going to be a joint, and all of a sudden, we were told that Israel was not doing it. So he was expecting a joint press conference with Benjamin Netanyahu after he ordered the assassination. Trump ordered the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. Netanyahu dropped out last minute, apparently, according to Trump's version of events. And it seems like he has held a grudge about that. He says, I was not happy about that. That was something I never forgot. And I want to remind you of something else he said about Netanyahu in just a moment, but Cenk, jump in.
Yeah, so he's got a couple of beefs with Netanyahu, but this clarifies which one got under his skin the most. Because he also didn't like that Netanyahu didn't lie about the 2020 election and pretend that Trump won, which would have been so bizarre, even for a monster like Netanyahu to do, because he wanted Biden to send him a whole bucket of money, right? So, but that turns out to be the minor thing. The major thing is, and this is what it appears that Israel does fairly regularly, which is tell America, you go do this, go kill the top Iranian general. Oh, we're right behind you, big guy, we're right behind you. And then Netanyahu is a lot like Trump, so he screwed Trump. And Trump's like, I'm not the guy who gets screwed, I'm the guy who does the screwing. What the hell is this? I thought we were doing it together. And it turns out, of course, Netanyahu lied to him and said, oh, golly gee, did I get America to do an assassination for me? I guess I did, but my fingerprints aren't on it. But brother, when you deal with Trump, he's gonna out you. He's not gonna listen to any normal diplomacy.
So I want to remind you of something that Donald Trump specifically said in regard to Benjamin Netanyahu several years ago when he was in office. This was during an interview with Axios for their podcast. Let's listen in.
You've probably heard that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, or Bibi as he's called, were best buds, that it was a bromance. Well, turns out that's bull. By the end of his presidency, Donald Trump couldn't stand Netanyahu. He thought Netanyahu was disloyal and ungrateful for everything he had done for him. By the time I talked to Trump in April 2021, he was over Bibi.
I haven't spoken to him since, right? I didn't talk to him.
So Trump has had some negative feelings toward Netanyahu, which probably made him feel freed up enough to say some critical things about Netanyahu in the context of this interview, because he attacked Netanyahu in regard to his failures in protecting Israelis on October 7th. He said, I would say that what happened on the October 7th should have never happened. It happened on Netanyahu's watch. And I think it's had a profound impact on him despite everything, because people said that shouldn't have happened. And then he goes on to talk about the hostages and the failure to get the hostages released. We'll get to that in just a moment. Cenk.
Yeah, I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying, because at the end I'm going to show you why Donald Trump can't be trusted on this issue at all. Having said that, he does have a second advantage here, which is he doesn't like to be slapped across the face. And so Biden doesn't mind at all. So if
it happens every day.
Yeah, he'll say, I told Netanyahu that he is not to do X. Netanyahu come out like 30 minutes later, a worldwide press conference, and go, I'm doing X, what are you gonna do about it? Slap him across the face.
Can I actually give an example from today? So right now, and this is why I didn't care to cover the ceasefire negotiations that are happening in Cairo, because I just know that they're gonna fall apart. And today is a perfect example of why. So Netanyahu wants to invade Rafah. They're already doing airstrikes in Rafah, but they want to do a full-blown invasion into Rafah, which would be devastating for the civilian population that is, basically sheltering there, more than 1 million displaced Palestinians. Well, Netanyahu made clear that whether there is a ceasefire agreement or not, the IDF will invade Rafah. And then he'll turn around and say, we haven't come to a ceasefire agreement because Hamas refuses to agree to anything. They have outrageous demands. Well, a ceasefire would require both sides to cease fire. An invasion into Rafah after forging a ceasefire would violate the ceasefire, which shows that Netanyahu is engaging in these negotiations in bad faith.
Yeah, and so, look, I posted on social media that because CNN was reporting that it was gonna be a permanent ceasefire, and I was like, take it! Hamas should definitely take that deal if it's a permanent ceasefire and Israel actually withdraws from Gaza. So I'm not looking at it like, the Palestinian side, the Israeli side. I'm looking at, hey, do we have a real peace here, offer here? Because I would love that, because it would save lives on both sides, right? But then of course it was a trick. Of course it wasn't a permanent ceasefire. It's 40 days and they say after that we're gonna level Rafah. So, and then they go, I can't believe Hamas didn't take it. We were gonna wait 40 days before we killed everybody in Rafah, and now they don't want it. They're so unreasonable, right? But the point here in the context of the Trump interview is, Biden will get slapped around by Netanyahu all day long. Open-handed slap, boy, what are you gonna do about it? Biden's like, I'll give you $17 billion more. Whereas if you slap Trump around, there's some chance he's gonna slap you back. So I'm keeping it real. That is an upside of Trump. Having said that, at the end of the day, he's the boy of all the donors anyway.
We're
Trump
all talking about rhetoric right now, right? And there has been rhetoric on the Democratic side with Biden and the Republican side with Trump. But the question is, do you actually hold the Israeli government's feet to the fire when it comes to how they carry out war, how they use American weapons that are sent over to them, or the funds that are given to them to buy American weapons? Now, let's get to what Trump had to say about the hostages. He says, they have the most, meaning the Israelis, have the most sophisticated equipment. They had everything was there to stop that, meaning stop what happened on October 7th. And a lot of people knew about it, thousands and thousands of people knew about it, but Israel didn't know about it. And I think he's being blamed for that very strongly, being blamed. And now you have the hostage situation. So it's difficult to understand what specifically he's referring to when he says thousands and thousands of people knew. Is he referring to the intelligence that the Israelis had prior to the attack, which they decided to just kind of brush under the rug and discredit? Remember, there was an intelligence report. There was someone within the Israeli military or intelligence community who was raising a red flag about what Hamas was planning to do, but they didn't think that Hamas had the capacity or capability to carry out the type of attack that they did on October 7th. So I think that's what he's referring to, but I don't know for sure.
This is not that important, but my reading of that particular part was that no, he was referring to the thousands of Palestinians or Hamas members who knew that particular thing because the Hamas guys were actually doing it. So they had spread it to so many people, yet Israeli intelligence couldn't figure it out. But Trump is not a guy known for doing a lot of reading or having a lot of information. As Anna points out, Israeli intelligence did know about it. Netanyahu did know about it. They just chose not to do anything because they didn't take it seriously.
Now moving on, he says of the hostages, and this is really devastating because when you stop and think about how some of this is very likely true, it is heartbreaking. He says, I think you have very few hostages left. You know, they talk about all of these hostages. I don't believe these people are able to even wanting to take care of people as negotiations. I think he's referring to Hamas and how they're treating the hostages. I think the hostages are going to be far fewer than people think, which is a very sad thing. And I will say this, Bibi Netanyahu rightfully has been criticized for what took place on October 7th. And look, we don't know how many hostages are left. You know, Hamas has released some of the hostages who luckily are still alive, and they're speaking under duress, which is why I feel uncomfortable airing those videos. So we know that some of them are alive. We just don't know how many of them, given the siege of the Gaza Strip, given the lack of humanitarian aid going into the Gaza Strip, given the aerial bombardments that have taken place. It's really uncertain. So I think Trump is right about questioning the number of hostages that remain alive.
Yeah, that part is probably true.
Yeah. All right, final thing I'll bring up is he has seemed to have soured on a two-state solution, but I wanna go to what he had to say about Adelson, because at the end of the day, he's gonna listen to his donors. I mean, historically, if you look at his track record, he has carried out what his donors have wanted. So he regurgitated some of the pro-Israel talking points meant to justify the persecution, repression, and even killings of Palestinians. He says children grow up and they're taught to hate Jewish people at a level that nobody thought was possible. And I had a friend, a very good friend, Sheldon Adelson, who felt that it was impossible to make a deal because the level of hatred was so great. And so Trump also said that Adelson loved Israel more than anything else. He loved Israel and he wanted to protect Israel, and he felt that it was impossible to make a deal because of the level of hatred. The reporter asks, do you feel that way now? And Trump said, I disagreed with it, but so far he hasn't been wrong.
Okay, so now that gets to two things. One's the small note, the other one's giant. The small note is Adelson's vicious racist against Muslims. And it's so ironic that he talks about, and now he's passed away, but that he talks about, the Palestinians hate us so much. He funds every politician who will allow Israel to kill as many Palestinians as humanly possible while talking about how bad the Palestinians are. Come on, get out of here, man. They make it, people like Adelson and almost all of mainstream media and almost every politician in the country make it sound like the Palestinians are occupying the Israelis and that they have brutalized them and that they've killed 34,000 Israelis, starved nearly 1 million Israelis, as if the Palestinians are the strong ones, etc. All that is just nothing but projection. Sheldon Adelson's heart was filled with nothing but hatred, okay? So if you don't know who he is, he was a casino owner. Now his wife, Miriam Adelson, has inherited his fortune. He was one of the richest people in the world. He made a lot of his money in Macau, China. He was brought up on corruption charges related to China. And guess who let him out of those charges? Donald Trump, with a slap on the wrist. He also wanted to shut down internet gambling. And while Trump was in office, they shut down internet gambling. Why? Because Sheldon Adelson ordered Donald Trump to do it. Same reason why they moved the embassy to Jerusalem. And my favorite part, and I wrote all about this in my book, Justice is Coming. At the end, Trump threw in a pair of Ginsu knives and a Presidential Medal of Honor for Miriam Adelson, Sheldon's wife, okay? Making a mockery of our country. I'm kidding about the Ginsu knives, but he really gave her the top medal we have. Okay, oh, you have given me so much money in bribes. Here's a nice little trinket for your wife. Now that he's passed away, Trump is busy kissing Miriam Adelson's ass. And as soon as she ponies up the money, he'll turn around right away and go, I love Bibi. I don't know what you're talking about. I just made a deal. And I'm now Bibi's boy. And I'll do whatever Bibi tells me to do, because that's what he did when he was in office. Sheldon Adelson gave him $100 million through the super PACs, the dark PACs, etc. in 2016, and he did it again in 2020, $100 million. And I'm so angry at the Democrats for never pointing it out, because they're so intensely corrupt that he didn't even bother mentioning a $100 million bribe that Donald Trump got. And of course, they do everything Israel asks, so they didn't point out that Trump does everything Israel asks. And you know Trump has no boundaries, so if Miriam bribes him enough, or other people, he'll come in and go, you know what? I hate Muslims. What do I give a goddamn about Muslims unless they're Saudis buying my stuff, right? Kill them all, kill their family members. That's what he said last time. Ban them from the country. They're all terrorists, etc. So it depends. Maybe we get lucky and Trump miraculously doesn't get bribed by Adelson or someone else.
Or
in campaign contributions.
Or the criticisms from the America First, portion of his base start to go after him hard enough that he reconsiders whether that money is worth it.
Yeah, I mean, MAGA, where are you at? I mean, I know they don't know, because the right-wing media never talks about Donald Trump's corruption. And the funny part is the mainstream media never talks about his corruption, because then they'd have to talk about corruption overall.
Exactly.
And they'd have to talk about campaign contributions.
True.
Right?
Yep.
So his biggest weakness, MAGA doesn't know, independents don't know, and I would be super curious to find out what MAGA thinks if they find out that Donald Trump has been Sheldon Adelson's bitch this whole time, that he walked him around in a leash. America first, give me another medal, bitch, right? That's what Sheldon did with Donald. So let's see what Donnie is going to do next, but don't judge what he says today. Wait till he gets bribed or doesn't get bribed. That will determine what Donald Trump does, because that's all he cares about is the money. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.